Alive, you are live.
Yeah, perfect. Good afternoon, or riperile, as they would say in the tongue of the Shangaan, which is, of course, the local language we speak over here. You are most welcome to the Sunset Safari here, Safari Live with Wild Earth, and we're sitting in the Kruger National Park, the western fringes thereof, on a little piece of paradise called Djuma Private Game Reserve. And I'm sitting at the site of what was the most astonishing scene this morning, where a female hyena was set upon by 10 or 11 wild dogs. They bit her bottom, they took chunks out of it, and then she backed into a peltiforum bush. And while her business end was weaving from side to side, and she was howling and growling, and the dogs were running around her, yipping and whelping, they left her alone eventually. And eventually she scuttled off through the bushes, and they went off. I don't know what they went off to do. I think they killed again, a scrub hare perhaps. And it was all the most astonishing thing. We felt the amazing sense of savagery of Africa, and then as we came down to this waterhole here, where peace reigns, an elephant bull came down and a chin spot batters called overhead, and suddenly the savagery was replaced with the ultimate calm of the wilderness, and I was struck with the juxtaposition of that amazing viciousness and then the complete peace that the wild gives us. So welcome to it. We hope we'll get something as exciting this afternoon, but we never know what's going to be around the next corner. You are on a live safari, as I said. My name is James. On camera today we have Dave. Hello, Dave.
Dumela.
Dumela. Dave is speaking South Sotho this evening. That's wonderful. Botswana. That was very unexpected. Okay, and because you're on a live safari, it would be very, very nice to hear from you during the course of the drive. Hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter, or questions at WildEarthTV if you're on the email. You can also talk to us on YouTube, on the UChat function, however that works, I don't know. Our plan is to basically head off probably towards Arathusa during the course of the afternoon, and then as it turns to evening, we'll head back into this area. The dogs apparently were left on Biffle's Hook, which is just to the sort of north of where we are now, which is the right-hand side of your picture, my left-hand side, and they were left there. They'll probably sleep during, it was a warm day, about 30 degrees, which is roughly 92 degrees Fahrenheit. No, it's not. What is it, 28 is 82, it's 85, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, I'll get it right eventually. And they will be sleeping under a bush somewhere, and then as it gets cooler during the day, I suspect they'll probably head towards some sort of water where they know there will be an antelope species or two that they can go and try and catch for their supper. Either water or perhaps towards a clearing. Big clearings down on Quarantine, lots of impala that end. So welcome to it. We hope to have an action-packed 3 hours for you. Scott Dyson is on the other vehicle, and in the final control, Louise back on the vocals and Leanne on the keys. Let's head across to Scott, get an update from him, and I will see you at Arathusa.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the warthogs. This is a male, as you can clearly see from the appendages sticking out from his rear, and he's a little bit nervous. It's not uncommon for warthog to be nervous. He actually trotted off as we came around the corner, and then the fresh green shoots that he was nibbling on as he came to us slowed him down slightly. I think he's running after a female that disappeared off into that thicket ahead of him. Wonderful. Well, a good start, and welcome on board with myself. My name is Scott, for those of you who have never met me before, and I'm teamed up with Jean-Andre Gerding on camera. He is back from travels in Madagascar, Australia, who knows where else, but he's been all over the show, but he is thankfully back. For those of you who don't know, he's been a cameraman at Wild Earth for quite some time, a valuable member of our team, and really happy to have him back behind the camera. So, that is going to be the person bringing you, hopefully, some wonderful images of wildlife this afternoon. I've just been filling him in with what's been happening with all the regular characters, Karula, Tingana, Shadow, the Nkahuma lions, the general movements of game, elephants having moved off about a week and a half ago, not too many eddies around. So I've just been filling him in on what's been happening, which is obviously going to take probably the whole drive and long into tonight around the campfire. Now, my plan is to work the southern reaches of Djuma to start with, And that's because not too many people focused on this area this morning because of all the action that was occurring in the north of Djuma, which I'm sure James has told you about. Incredible stuff with wild dogs, hyena, even a jackal was on the scene. There's also the possibility that the Nkuhuma Pride of Lion are somewhere in that northern reaches of Djuma. So we're going to probably head there a little bit later to give James a hand snooping about there. But for now, I thought we should invest some time looking for Karula, a leopardess. Now, for those of you who were on the Sunset Safari yesterday, you'll remember me saying that one of the guides who traverses the properties to the south of Djuma said he saw Karula with a suckle mark about 5 days ago. Now again, you can get as excited as you like, but this is just essentially a rumor. Until we see something with our own eyes, consider it a rumor. That is what I've learned in the bush. It's probably your safest bet, so that you don't get excited for the wrong reasons. But there is a chance that despite all of our thoughts, she still has cubs that she's successfully nurturing. So, in a snoop around here, she was last seen by that guide south of our property, so I figured we can snoop around here and see if we don't get lucky. Which it appears we have already, not with the leopard we're looking for, but with some of the largest kudu we get in this area, or largest antelope rather, being the kudu. One's got a passenger, a red-billed oxpecker, sitting on its shoulder. It looks like a young oxpecker though, because it lacks the red bill, so it would have been born this season. Along with the young oxpecker, there's a young male kudu, which you can see his little horns sticking out there. You'll also notice he's got a white chevron between his eyes if he faces us again, whereas between the eyes of the ladies there is no white chevron. So that's another feature that you can even distinguish young male kudus before they've got horns. Sadly, it's not furnishing us with the right angle here. Come on. Ah, there we go. There you can see those white chevrons. Interesting that he's nibbling on the ground like this, but not untypical of a trout situation. Now, whether he's feeding on grass or simply small shrubs, it's hard to say, but they technically will usually be browsing on leaves, which he could be doing just at ground level, but he could also be capitalizing on the fresh green shoots that are emerging after the rain we had a couple of days back. Good. Hello, Mercedes, and thank you for your kind words, saying that Safari Live is a wonderful experience that you're enjoying being a part of, but you are concerned that our broadcasting this live information may assist poachers in information with where to possibly come and do their dirty business. Mercedes, there is a minuscule chance, in my opinion, that any poacher is going to watch our shows for the benefits of gaining knowledge and therefore coming in and poaching animals here in Djuma. I think the chances are slim to zero, but that's just my opinion. Having said that though, we do take the stance where we do not show rhinoceros. So even though they occur in the Sabi Sands, and that's common knowledge to everyone, or at least any poacher with half a brain cell, they know where they occur. That's not the hard part. The hard part is obviously finding them, killing them, and not getting caught doing that. So despite that though, we do not show rhinoceros for that slim to zero chance of a poacher watching the show and then coming and poaching that rhino. So that is the most highly sought after animal at the moment regarding poachers. There's not really a poaching problem with the other animals of this area in the Sabi Sands. Obviously the bushmeat trade may be an issue in some other areas, but it's not a problem here. So we aren't really assisting in poachers, I don't think, and even though we could be, it's an unlikely portal of information that they would use. Glad that you asked though, because it is a major problem poaching, and that is why we don't show the rhino. Anyway, we're going to send you across to James with another large grey animal.
Marvellous, marvellous luck here. We've just turned onto Arathusa, onto the cut line between Simbambili and Arathusa, and there is a beautiful herd of elephants. They're all heading north into Simbambili at the moment, so we probably won't have a very long sighting of them, but it's wonderful to see them. Nice big herd, probably about 20 of them. Quite a few of them have already crossed. A little baby there. Youngsters, there's a floppy-eared female, we know her. Of course, that floppy ear will affect her slightly in that she won't be able to flap her ears quite as much in order to cool down the brain on a hot day like this, but it's not too hot, she'll be alright. Here comes another whole group. Huge cow, Dave, sorry, that cow there is massive. So massive, in fact, that she's not a cow but a bull, who is clearly travelling with the herd in the hopes of finding an estrus female. It's the only reason he would be with the herd. And more of them are streaming out of the bush. And they look like they've had something to drink. They're covered in mud, and I suspect they've either been at Red Dam, which is not too far from here, or they have been at Arathusa Dam. So thank you, Kevin Rock Knight. You say that there were elephants at Arathusa, and perhaps these are them. They're certainly covered in enough mud to have been at the big Arathusa Dam, which is now almost dry, but it is full of good mud, of course, for elephants. A little bit fuller after the rain. Another floppy-eared elephant. Little one here. Very young, only about sort of 8 years old. Look, can you say hi? Just entertaining herself. I think they get bored walking through the bush, eating all day, and once they have some time. Another one. I think they quite enjoy just having a smell. Just an investigation, they're quite curious. And that's sweet, that's only about 3 feet from us where she turned. Here's a fairly large one. You just keep on moving there, big lady. Thank you. Also, only about 8 feet from us. There they go, quietly off into the Simbambili afternoon. In the background, a Birchall's starling says goodbye to them. Can't see him, he's somewhere around over here. Wasn't that wonderful? What a great start. Off we go. There we are. Now, we're going to drive down the area where Tingana was seen last night by Scott. And I know he was very full yesterday, so maybe he won't have moved too far during the course of last night. I will try and get an update on the radio at some stage as to what happened here this morning. And let's go back across to Scott, get a brief update from him, and we'll carry on down this way.
Shame, I hope James and Dave's camera is not terminal with its illness. But I'm glad you joined us when you did, because I did hear some Birchall starlings alarm calling in these leadwood trees in front of us here. But they've just stopped. So maybe it was a false alarm, or maybe whatever threat they did see flying past, hard to tell. But it's so important. I was just telling Jean-Andre how wonderful little bird can say that the birds of male. There was a massive male leopard that these birds were all shouting their disgust at. Central portions of Djuma. It is bad. It is better. Very good. Welcome back. I'm not sure how much you copied about what I was saying, but basically, we're just checking for any tracks along our southern boundary. Thankfully, the animals, unlike us, have got no restrictions. They can go where they like. And it's far better that way than vice versa. Hello Ryan, I hope you are well, and you would like to know exactly which lioness I posted, and it was the Nkuhuma lioness. Apologies Ryan for not mentioning that, and I should have let you guys know who it was. But yeah, it was 4 out of the 5 Nkuhuma ladies. Whether the 5th one was nearby, but we just couldn't see her, we're not sure. But they were vocalizing like mad. It was probably the most vocal I've ever seen them in over a year of being here. So, special evening, happy memories regarding that. Now the problem is we don't know where they've gone since then, Ryan. Margareta in Germany. You are interested to know how can we be so sure as to know which lions we are seeing at any given point in time. It's tricky, but there are certain people, some of our viewers, I know Nikki has got a great grasp on which lioness is which within the Nkuhuma pride. I look at them and they all look the same to me. But for some of you guys who are getting such great views from our wonderful cameraman on possibly big screens, you're often actually getting better images than we are here. It's kind of like relating watching a live sports game at a stadium to watching it at home. Sometimes at home you actually get better views, and it's the same for this live safari experience. So you can tell individuals apart, but it is difficult. In general though, what guides will do, and I speak on behalf of most guides here, most of the guides will not know the differences between the Nkuhuma. They'll just see 5 ladies. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm fairly confident that is the case. Now what they will be looking at when determining its one pride from another will be territory and composition of the pride. The area that you're seeing them in will be, you know, usually the local resident pride. You don't very often have imposters or nomadic animals coming through. So territory alone is huge, and then obviously composition. If there's 3 older lioness, 1 young, 1 male, that will also be to tell what's what regarding the different lion. The leopard are a little bit easier because they are solitary and their spot patterns are often easier to distinguish than those of the lions. Great. James has found you guys some giraffe. See you later.
Well, there, of course, is a large giraffe, a bull, an old bull. Let's just assess his condition, because I don't think he looks particularly healthy. Dave, if you wouldn't mind focusing on his backside, where you can see his hip bones sticking out. You can actually see his ribs sticking out as well. So the drought taking its toll, I think, on this fellow, as well as the fact that he's not the youngest giraffe I've ever seen. You can tell that just upon the state of his skin. The skin is in places being devoured by filarial parasites. And if you look at his face there, you can see a couple of notches out of his face there. But he does still have very nice little eyebrows. His eyelashes, long, sweeping giraffe eyelashes. He's just chewing his cud there, finishing off his lunch for the second time. He's rather a splendid fellow. And that little notch on the middle of his nose is probably that filarial parasite. It's just eating away at his skin. It may also be from a fight. You can see that the top of his skull there, between his ears, all the way down to his nose, is quite sort of gnarled and bumpy, and that is from fighting. And I often use the similarity between human beings and giraffe, where if you examine the skull of a rugby player or an American football player, giraffe player, you'll find that the skull is a lot thicker. It has deposits of calcium on it from constant head bashing. And I think the giraffe is very similar. The older they are, the larger that median horn or the gnarled bumps on the skull become. There's a nice example of that filarial parasite. There, if you go down his neck, would you mind? There you can see there. The bottom of his neck there is a very definite hole on those filarial parasites that eat away at the skin of the giraffe. He's a big old bull. They weigh almost 1.4 tons. Now, I don't know what that is in stone. To me, the use of stone as a measurement of weight is, well, belongs to the use of the ox wagon. But I can't understand it. So if anybody's watching from Britain, I think Britain, they still use stones. Tell us, if you wouldn't mind, with 1.4 tons, which is 1,400 kilograms, or roughly 3,000 pounds, what is that in stone? I'd very much like to know. This is the only mammal, or the only ruminant, that weighs more than a ton. A very astute question coming through from Pittsburgh. And Audrey, you're an astute 12-year-old, obviously, and you want to know if there are any animals that will change their diets completely as a result of the drought. Audrey, yes, there are, in many ways. The most obvious example to me would be, well, I'll give you three. One would be, the first would be the smallest, and that's the bush baby, which is a little primate that we find here. It's a nocturnal primate. And during the summer months would normally be eating insects, but because we don't have so many insects, because there's no rain, they have moved on to their winter diet already, which is tree gum. So they will try and get acacia gum, the gum of the acacia tree. So that's one. Impala, another one. They are mixed feeders, browsers and grazers. They would normally be grazing at this time of the year, but they're doing very little grazing at the moment. They're doing far more browsing because there is so little grass. Well, there has been so little grass. The last 3 or 4 days, with that beautiful rain that we had, has created a flush of green grass around the place. And then, Audrey, the elephant's exactly the same position as the impala. They quickly, the 2 hawk eagles chasing a Wahlberg eagle there. See that? I think that's what it is. It is. It's 2 African hawk eagles having a fight. Look at them! I think they're not hawk eagles, sorry, I'm just trying to identify them, but they're having a right old dog fight in the fight there, in the air there. So Wahlberg's definitely the one above. There we go. Oh. They're all the same species. I wonder if they're not all 3 Wahlbergs. No, they're not, you know. I don't know. They are. They're Wahlberg's eagles. All 3 of them are Wahlberg's eagles. And Louise thinks maybe a lover's dispute. It's quite possible. They're not very happy with each other. The one has caught a thermal and gone way up higher than the others. Yeah, they're coming towards us now. Wasn't that amazing to see them lock talons like that? And I know they're Wahlbergs because they're very thin tails. And as soon as they turn sort of away from the wind, then their tails go very narrow. And when they're turning and they're banking into the wind, they spray the tail out, and that gives them more purchase in the air. And they're just following that thermal up and up and up and up. And beautiful blue sky and clouds that you can see back behind them. It's epic. Isn't that amazing? too easy, that camera work, is it? From Wildearth eagles, I think we'll probably move on to monarch butterflies. That would be a good test piece. And he's gone. I said it was just behind us. I think we'll leave it where he is. Isn't that amazing? So Audrey, I hope you got all that. Elephants, impalas, bush babies, good examples. Basically, any animal that can move, has moved on to their winter grazing, could move on to their winter food, would probably have done so by now. That said, if they pan slowly to the right here, you can definitely see a very obvious flush of green grass on the ground there. And that 3 days ago was brown, barren grass. And Debbie, apparently you had asked about the grass. Well, there it is. You can see it now. 3 or 4 days is all it took, and only one dumping of rain. Now, the thing with a grass plant like this is, of course, that because they haven't had proper summer rain, they won't have built up the reserves under the ground. So now we've had a bit of rain, they've quickly flushed up. There's a kudu running across the road. He ain't stopping for no one. It's just disappeared. Well, it's running. They will flush up, and that of course creates a loss of nutrients in the base of the plant. Now, because there are so many grazers who are so hungry at the moment, you will find that there's going to be a lot of pressure exerted on those grasses. So as this new flush of green is cut off by the grazers, so the plant will need to use even more nutrients to push up fresh leaves in order to gain more nutrients. And you can find in a situation like this where you've got so many hungry animals and a lot of dead grass plants as a result of the drought that you get an overgrazing effect. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. We will need a bit more rain if we're going to avoid something like that. Now, Zoomy Mike, you're interested to know about old age and whether or not animals die of old age and whether we find them out here having died of old age. Elephant, buffalo and giraffe were the three specific species that you wanted to know about. Zoomy Mike, we don't know, because normally nothing dies out here of old age except the odd elephant. And so sometimes you'll find a carcass of an elephant or so, but you see, as soon as they die, even of natural causes, they will be found by hyenas and lions, ripped apart and eaten by vultures, and so they don't last very long. Elephants can die of old age. Highly unlikely that a giraffe or a buffalo would die of old age. Let's head across to Scott, get an update from him. We're now heading south towards Arathusa Dam.
Okay, everyone. I'm going to need your help here. It's not easy, it's far away, but this is a kingfisher that I'm not too sure of. I think it could be a grey-hooded kingfisher juvenile. I can see a bit of chestnut on its belly. The size seems right. It's got a very light kind of grey mottling on its breast and up to its head, so it could be the grey head or hood. I always get it mixed up whether it's a grey hooded or a grey headed. It's a grey headed. So I think it could be a juvenile, which is wonderful. If we're patient, we'll probably find its parents are going to come and greet it and maybe give it a snack. It's probably still lurking nearby, Mom and Dad. Look at the way it's bobbing its head up and down like that. Quite a typical kingfisher motion. They'll do that when trying to focus on certain things at different depths or at different distances rather. So it's a focusing mechanism, as well as just, I think, a bit of a general habit for them. You might be able to hear a black-headed oriole calling faintly in the distance. Now, I'm just bringing up a picture in my book here, or rather in my app, which will provide us with better images of youngsters. Yeah, it's a youngster. Awesome. It's a juvenile grey-headed kingfisher. Now, I've only managed to show you one of these, one adult so far this summer. Let's have a quick look at it here on my little app, Gendre. It's a tiny picture, sadly. But this is this grey mottling that I was talking of, that you may be able to see. Yeah, the glare's a little bit better. And I'm just going to pan across this way. Look at how beautiful the adults are. Absolutely awesome. So that one's still got some development to do, but I'm hoping if we just hang around here for a little bit longer, thanks Chandra, we're going to be able to maybe get to see the adults making a kill and coming, and it either them coming to it or it going to them to beg for it. We sadly can't get much closer than where we are. Maybe we'll just leave it be. Let's give you one last view after having a look in the book, though. A little bit to the right, Chandra. There we go. You should. Where's he disappeared to? Why can't we see him here? He should still be there. Ah, there he is. Sorry, Chandra. I'd completely covered him with some bushes in the foreground here. So not the best views, but you can see that ever so slight chestnut coming through on its rump. And that could well be a new bird for your bird lists. Speaking of new birds, for those of you who are not on the sunrise safari, I saw 2 black-crowned night herons at the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. So hopefully if James heads past there later, or myself, we'll be able to find them for you. I didn't manage to get them on camera this morning. They evaded us, but I'm hoping that that too will be a new bird for a lot of you. Awesome, awesome little night heron. Good, we're going to continue and send you across to James with some hippo. Chewing them off.
We just came down the road here and stopped in order to try and fix the fact that you couldn't hear me last time I was stopped. And we looked to the left, and there was this old fellow standing in the puddle. He didn't look particularly pleased. David said he looked a bit grumpy, and then I reminded him, of course, that a buffalo doesn't really have the muscles in his face to be able to grin like a Cheshire cat. So whether or not he is feeling as depressed as he looks, or if he is in fact feeling a profound sense of joy and exhilaration for being on camera, one cannot tell, of course. One can tell that he is chewing the cud. He, much like that giraffe, is a cud chewer or ruminant. Oh, you see, he just vomited into his mouth there and is now chewing the cud again. It is amazing they have to do that. And you can see lots of foam coming out of his mouth. That is just simply a function of the fact that he's chewing and chewing and chewing, and that saliva will eventually form a foam. They don't normally allow us to get this close. He's only sitting about 8 feet from us, and he's completely relaxed. He's probably been lying in this puddle for much of the day, relaxing in the shade of the guarri bushes and combretum bushes around him. That's a perfect place for a buffalo bull to be. And he's not a particularly big fellow either. He's probably so happy in this little puddle that he's prepared to wait for us to go away and leave him alone again. And he'll lie down and enjoy the couth. Isn't he a lovely chap? I think he's profoundly great. Old bull, and we can tell that from the shape of his horns and the fact that the keratin on the top, the keratin sheath on the top of them, has been scraped off after years and years of rubbing their horns up against tree bark, and often you find them with these kind of reddish tinge to their horns, and that's from them rubbing against tannin-rich barks, often on the combretum or bush willow trees that we have. You can also see where the oxpeckers have cleaned away the fur on his face. That's just from the wear and tear, basically, of them taking ticks off. I just want to see if he won't lie down for us. It could be quite interesting to see. Like I said, it's not a very hot day. It's actually very pleasant. 30 degrees out here is very nice. 84 degrees Fahrenheit. And some delicious mud there, of course. Did you see him there? I'm sure you saw him go. You basically saw his stomach heave, and then the bolus came up underneath his neck and into his mouth, and that's what he's re-chewing now. He's also snotting from his nose, which is distasteful. David, let us leave this buffalo bull to himself. Goodbye, old fellow. Whitney, I'm sorry about that. I know I described what he was doing as vomiting in his own mouth, and you said that made you do the same thing. I apologize. That's really not what I meant at all. But yes, that is what they do, of course. Right, thank you, Tom in Dallas. You say the giraffe is 214 stone, so that's 1,200 kilos, is 214 stone. Because 1 stone is 14 pounds. You see, I mean, you really have to have the most exceptional ability at mental arithmetic to be able to convert at will the imperial and metric systems. In fact, you've almost got to be a genius to operate in the imperial system alone, let alone to have the metric system as well. I do hope one day that the world will go metric. I don't believe that we will ever get it together enough as a species to make that happen, but it would be very nice. Stone, 14 pounds. I mean, who decided that 14 pounds should go into 1 stone? Now, Riley, you are 13 years old, and there are some little buffalo. Before we look at them, Dave, I wonder if there aren't some more in the waterhole here. Riley, you're 13. You want to know if the skin disease would kill the giraffe? No, it won't. They all have it. All giraffe have that kind of, it's not a disease so much as a parasite that just eats away at the skin and leaves the odd sore. And no, it won't kill them at all, Riley. Don't worry about that. There's a couple more buffalo in here. This is Red Dam, and I think this is where Scott had his bucking bronco buffalo yesterday. Is that right, Dave?
That's correct.
And I don't know if any of you saw that, but it was an amazing thing to see. It looked like, exactly like one of those bulls that the cowboys jump on and then are released into the rodeo ring. And he was doing exactly that same kind of bucking and rearing motion. No doubt I've got all of that terminology wrong, so those of you who from Texas or other states where rodeo is a big thing, you can correct me. Hashtag Safari Live, questions at WildEarthTV. I wouldn't fancy the chances of a cowboy on the back of one of these things. Now, Tom in Dallas, you say, am I sure that the balding face of that buffalo we saw is not just male pattern baldness? No, I am actually something of an expert in male pattern baldness, Tom. In fact, I am possibly the world's greatest authority on male pattern baldness, having experienced it myself, and of course I've now come to accept it. Well, I've sort of come to accept it, and before I came to accept it, I did an immense amount of research into how I might avoid it. I can safely tell you that what that buffalo has is not male pattern baldness, but oxpecker-induced baldness. I have a severe case of male pattern baldness, and that is why you have never seen me without my hat on. David, on the other hand, does not have any such problem at all. He has the locks of hair that I'm just trying to think of the celebrity that they most look like. Alanis Morissette, probably. Hey, Dave? Oh, Yes, Louise has actually come up with a much better one. He looks a bit like Slash. I would also look like Slash if I could, I promise. Yes, of course, and I did worry much more. My worry about male pattern baldness did reduce slightly as I realized my slight resemblance to Jason Statham, and I was driving. I didn't realize it until I had parked my car once at a garage, or a filling station as you call them, and one of the petrol or garage attendants came out to help me out, and he looked me once over and he says, "You are the transporter." I said, "What?" He said, "The transporter." I said, "I'm not sure what you mean." So he took his phone out and he downloaded a picture of Jason Statham, and he says, "Look, the transporter, it is you." And I said, and then he stopped himself and he looked at my car, which was a fairly aged Opel Astra, and he said, "Oh no, it's not you." Anyway, I was very pleased to be confused for Mr. Statham. Debbie, a very good comment from you, and it's very relevant to a drought, especially in a situation where there are people involved and people with bleeding hearts hoping to do good for the animals. You say every piece of the biosphere is connected and every change affects everything else in the biosphere, and you're absolutely bang on correct. This is why it is so dangerous to give water to animals when the rain doesn't give it to them. It is so dangerous to feed animals when the grazing runs out, because the fact that there is no rain, the fact that there is no water and no grazing will inevitably affect the herbivores. As I've said before, that will in turn affect the carnivores. But there's a delicate and dynamic equilibrium, as we call it, and everything, like you say, is dependent on everything else. So when the rain does return, it's important that there has been a die-off of herbivores so that the grasses and the trees can recover to what they were before. And when we start interfering, thinking that by just making some kind of micro-intervention that we're doing good, 9 times out of 10, we create an effect that we don't understand, we didn't think would happen, and it turns out to be a bit of a disaster. And the water provision for animals is one of those obvious effects. There are some impala, and we'll just have a quick look at them, and then let's head across to Scott and get an update for what he's doing.
Well, I'm hoping that James has some luck with possibly the Anderson male leopard across on Arathusa. There was chatter of a set of large male tracks on the western side of Arathusa yesterday afternoon, as well as monkey alarm calls. So there is a chance. Oh, the impalas are fighting. Off you go, back to James.
Way. Sorry, just those 2 young impala seem to be having a bit of a fight there, and they'll be sorting out a little dominance hierarchy. I think they'll move into the open, and if they don't, I will move for them. No, there they go. So those are 2 young yearlings. They're just over a year old, born in November last year. We can tell that from the size of the horns. That is the typical size of horn for an impala of that age. And so they won't be having a serious fight. There's absolutely no chance that they're going to be breeding this year, not unless they're seriously advanced, which they don't look. And so rather than fighting for any serious reason, they're just kind of having a bit of a play, and they will learn, of course, how to use those horns in the serious business of fighting over mating rights and fighting to hold the territory when they're eventually about 3 years old. let's head back to Scott, let him finish his conversation. We'll continue towards Arathusa Dam.
I hope you managed to get to see a glimpse of them going at it. I'm interested by the fact that they're already getting a little bit feisty. It's very early for them to be fighting with one another. Usually it's only around May that they will perform their full-blown routing. Obviously leading up to that they do need to practice, and maybe that's just what those guys were doing. There have been tracks of a large elephant bull moving in the same direction as us, so I'm hoping he is not too far ahead of us. The tracks did look quite fresh. They are now off the road. I think he veered off to the left. Who knows, maybe he's across on Arathusa. Did you guys see an elephant on Arathusa? I'm not sure if you did or you didn't. I'm getting a feeling that you saw a breeding herd there. So not a bull, so maybe the bull is still here, but he was heading across towards kind of the central portions of Arathusa. Aha! Larry, you have made a very interesting observation in the few months that you have been following Safari Live, and that is that it appears that there are more adult elephant cows than there are adult elephant bulls. And that is possibly the case. The problem, I guess, may be that you're only getting to explore a very small area of what is a gigantic reserve. We get to traverse 2,000 hectares. It is literally a pinprick within a pinprick within a pinprick of the 3 million hectares plus that is the Transfrontier National Park that we're a part of, called the Kruger. Now, because we're only exploring this tiny area, you know, we are not seeing the full effects of what may be happening around us, and I feel that we don't have nearly as many elephant bulls here, especially the big bulls, as there are in other parts of Kruger. Now, having said that, I do agree with you. It doesn't appear that you see as many bulls as adult females. And the reason could be is that younger bulls, possibly, who are joining up into breeding herds, give you the false impression that there are actually more females than there are, but they're just young males. So that could be something that's leading towards you thinking that there are more females than males, simply because not each young bull does get pointed out as a young bull when you are looking at a breeding herd. But finally, I would like to say that I do agree with you, and I cannot give you an explanation for the reason that I do think, in general, there probably are less bulls than cows. Not too sure what would be the cause of that. Elephant bulls don't fight to the death very often, even though they may have very serious fights with one another. It's not a common thing that you will find elephant bulls fighting to the death, although it does happen, but it's not like a lot of them are going to be getting wiped out during their intraspecies fights. I'm not too sure if anybody else can shed some light on that, or even confirm whether the populations of the males or the females do differ greatly within the Kruger Park. I'm actually not too sure about that. But good question, Larry. Certainly got my brain spinning in overdrive, so thank you for that. Good. James has found you some vultures, so off you go.
You hear that?
So some vultures over there, everybody, in the dead tree, appropriately. That is what a vulture's lot in life is to be the harbinger of dead things. Now, were there to be a whole lot more of them, I'd say it was quite possible that there was an expired animal just below them being fed upon by perhaps a leopard. But there are just 2 of them there, and I know there is a nest close by. So I think that they are probably just resting on the tree there. I'm just going to look with my very powerful binoculars whether they have a full crop or not. They don't seem to have full crops, which says to me that they have not eaten too recently, and therefore that there is not a carcass on the ground beneath them. Now, those are two white-backed vultures, and I know in the States we've had some very interesting discussions of late of the different kinds of nomenclature for animals. And although we sort of speak the same language, we do have different terms for different things. And I think in the States, you would probably call a bird like that a buzzard, whereas here we would call it a vulture. And appropriately, it is called a different thing in the States because it actually belongs to a different family of birds entirely. And while they do look quite similar to what you might call a buzzard, the New World vultures are actually much more closely related to storks than they are to our vultures. So it's an example of what's called convergent evolution, where animals in totally different parts of the world evolve the same strategies for living in similar conditions, but completely separately from each other. She's speaking at all? Okay. I'm just having a few troubles with my earpiece. Apparently, from these large white-backed vultures, we're going to go back across to Scott and some little black birds jumping about in a tree.
Oh, no! A southern black tit just hit the ejector seat and went flying out of that buffalo thorn tree that it was sitting on. We stopped to take a close investigation into this tree because initially the black tits were alarm calling, or at least it sounded like it to me, so they were getting a little bit worked up about something, and I thought possibly a snake, possibly a mongoose, possibly some kind of a predator. Just like I spoke about earlier, the birds are incredibly useful when it comes to finding predators. Now, seeing as though you are with us, the black tits have just landed in the tree behind us. Let's see if we can't get you a glimpse of them. Seeing as though they've got such a bizarre name, I'm sure a lot of you would like to actually see what this bird looks like. It's the one that you can hear calling. And we may just... they keep flying, but we should be able to get a view of them here now. It's not going to be the greatest. They're small little birds. It's in the top little portion of this tree here, Jean-Andre. There we go. Well done. There you go, you little southern black tit you. And very black body, white bars on its wings. Can't really be confused with any other birds of this area. Ooh, yeah, there's a couple of them. And it appears like they're just having a happy family gathering. So maybe that's what the chittering and chattering was all about. Not necessarily for a steak, just for the enjoyment of the sunshine. Wonderful. There are a few European bee-eaters flying around here that I'm trying to work out where they are. They're incredibly pretty birds that we'd like to try and show you. Hello, Brenda in Virginia. And you were watching Pete's pond camera yesterday and you saw a very brightly colored bird. I'm just going to ask Louise to run through the colors and description of that bird again for me. Beautiful emerald green plumage, long tail, yellow, white and red around the head. Whew. I wonder what it could be.
Piglets.
European bee-eater, Jean-Andre?
Piglets.
Piglets. Okay, Jean-Andre spotted some little warthogs. Just going to creep forward a little bit. Sure. I can't for the life of me think of an emerald green bird with a long tail with red and yellow around its head. I'm sorry, I just can't for the life of me think what that could be. What I would suggest is maybe trying to tweet a screenshot of it if you took one. Oh, look at the tails up, off they go. There's Mummy. If you can try and tweet a screenshot, and then Lou will be able to try and send that to me, and then I can have a look at it. That will be the best way of trying to solve this. because from your description I am left baffled. But Pete's Pond is a long way away, so it wouldn't be hugely surprising that it's a bird that we don't necessarily get here, and that's possibly why I don't know what's going on. Let me just roll forward a bit and see if we can't get a slightly better view of these piglets with Mummy. Ah, there we go. So she's done well. It looks like 4 piglets are still alive. Well, what's interesting is that some people say that they can give birth to 6. I'm not convinced about that. I believe that 4 is their maximum, but that's just me. And if I do see any more than 4 together, I'll assume it's from 2 different mothers. Which could be the case, actually, because I think there is another mother lurking around here, unless there's an offspring from a previous litter, which also isn't hugely uncommon. Joe in New York, yes, it is fascinating how quickly the vegetation has responded to the small rainfall we got a couple of nights ago. I think it was 3 or 4 nights ago. We got some decent rain, about 20 mils, and already there's been an injection of green. The leaves and all the bushes are looking far more turgid and lush. And before the rain, things were looking very, very desperate. So this warthog family is certainly enjoying the bounty and turnaround time of Mother Nature. She's got the vegetation looking incredibly good in a frighteningly short amount of time. Well, the action is happening here on Safari Live this afternoon. We are going to race you back to James now.
There, everybody, is a rock or tree monitor lizard that David spotted running across the road. I was lost in dreamy daydream land, this beautiful sky overhead. David, thankfully, is on his game this afternoon. That's a young one, and just young simply because they get up to 130 centimeters in length. Now, that is the same as 3'3". No, it's not, it's about 3, or it's almost 4 feet. So they get enormously large. And he's blinking his little eyes there. You can see his nictitating membrane going across his eyes. It's not the eye, many of these, but I think there are quite a few of them around the place. And their major enemy, of course, is the martial eagle, the largest eagle species that we get here. Incredibly formidable eagle. And it just goes to show that only the martial is actually big enough and strong enough to take on one of these things when they're adult. They've got very immense strength. You wouldn't be able to hold one as a human being. They would whip you really hard with that tail. They'd scratch you with those vicious claws and probably bite you as well. And they eat pretty much anything edible. And as I say, you can just see that nictitating membrane going across the eyes every so often. There it is. And they eat millipedes. They're one of the few animals that can eat millipedes, which are normally pretty toxic. They've got a whole lot of cyanide in their exoskeletons, but they are happy to eat those. Otherwise, they will eat basically anything that is meat-ish and smaller than them. Other lizards, perhaps small snakes, they'd probably try and catch nestling birds if they could. Ooh, look at him moving. Isn't he great? And like I say, they will bite readily if they're attacked. And Steph, as you say, the camera is spectacular. Of course, anyone, if I was behind the camera, you wouldn't have, it is largely the operator, of course, that is doing the incredible job of bringing you those amazing scales that you can see there. That's a fantastic shot. Look at those claws. Aren't they vicious? He's watching us, but he thinks he's slightly confused as to whether he's hidden from us or not. And you can see, you can't really see, but on his back, he's got coloration that is very similar to the bark. And his belly, much like many of the animals out here, they tend to have pale bellies, and most of the coloration on their backs or their dorsal sides. And I think you'll find that has something to do with the fact that it is expensive for the body to produce the pigments that make those very distinctive markings. And therefore, it's sort of not really, there's no real point in making the bits of you that are normally seen the same color. That is the radio. I'm trying to get an update, but we still are not in range of anyone else. Which probably means that there's not much going on Arathusa itself. Isn't that special? Actually, the only other large or great rock monitor sighting I've had has been on Arathusa. Same thing. Ran across the road. I think it was with Brian at the time, and it was VM, and he told me to stop quickly. And there it was. You can see it breathing. Look at that. We tend to think of these things as being very distantly related to us, or so distantly that it's almost unfathomable that they could be. But they've got lungs in the same way that we do. You'll find that the joints on that forearm are pretty similar to ours. So you can see the wrist joint, you can see the 5 fingers, the 5 toenails or claws. So despite the fact that hundreds of millions of years of evolution have separated us, that basic design of 4 limbs and the internal workings are actually not that different. And if you compare the differences in, say, a millipede's structure to that of a spider, they are far more distantly related than we are to a reptile like this, and I just find that incredible. And the only other animal that this could be confused with would be a water monitor lizard, which tends to have much more distinctive dark markings, yellow and black. They don't have that distinctive Roman nose either. They've got a much more pointed nose. And of course, being water monitors, David, they are found around water. Well done. Good. These ones are called rock or tree monitors, and unsurprisingly are found in trees. Well done, David. Yes, good. I'll just quickly show you a picture of a rock, well, both of them. I'll show you the rock and the water monitor. Try and hide it from the sun there. How's that, Dave? There is the water monitor, and you can see a much more obviously pointed nose, different coloring. And there our rock monitor or tree monitor with his Roman nose. And as Louise says, looks a little bit more like a crocodile. I suppose, yes. They have a different, interesting distinction from a crocodile, though, is that their legs I will get back to, I'll tell you why I'm laughing now, but apparently the difference, they have different legs and different arrangement of legs or limbs from a crocodile. A crocodile's limbs come out from the side, and that's why when it walks, it looks so very awkward. It looks like it's kind of moving along in an awkward fashion, and that helps it when it's in the water. These lizards' legs come much more from underneath them, and that allows them to move on land much more efficiently than a crocodile can. Steph says apparently they're very delicious. I've never eaten a rock monitor, a tree monitor. I'm not sure that I ever shall, but I imagine they would taste, Dave, probably like chicken. I've eaten crocodile once before. That tastes like a mixture of fish and chicken. I wouldn't recommend it. Desperate times and all that. Anyway, he will be basking pleasantly in the sun there, comfortably waiting, and of course, oh, look at that. High action here at the monitor sighting. He's moving around the tree. I think that's amazing. I think he's almost trying to disguise himself from us in case we can see him. Right, I think let's move on. We're not far from the water. I'm going to start the engine and just keep watching him there. Dave, I think he might move. No, he thinks we can't see him, you see. What a wonderful, wonderful sighting. Now, Matthew, you are aged just 9, and you are possessed of an iguana, which is called Dyson, of course, after Scott Dyson. I think that is a brilliant name for an iguana. I'm sure it doesn't have a beard quite as impressive as Scott Dyson's, but I think Dyson is a very good name for an iguana indeed, Matthew. And you want to know if they are related, or are there any lizards that are related? Well, I suppose that would be the closest relative that we have here. I would imagine the monitor lizards would be the closest relatives to your iguanas, but I don't think that they're very closely related, no, Matthew. You know, an iguana, as far as I understand it, is what we call a New World reptile. Now, the New World is described as South America and North America, and the Old World is basically everything else. And it's a strange way of describing the world, but it just comes from the fact that Europeans first went to America sort of after they went to the rest of the world. That's why the distinction is called that. But what it means is, remember, that we are separated by the mighty Atlantic Ocean on one side. Well, that's what separates you from us. And then what separates you from the rest of the new old world on the other side is the mighty Pacific Ocean. And that means that the animals and plants that occur on either side, look at the squirrel there, the animals and plants that occur on either sides of those great bodies of water are often very different from each other. There's a little squirrel. He thought we hadn't seen him. And speaking of Scott Dyson, let us not forget, of course, that Scott was savaged by a squirrel in his sleep yesterday on his leg. Let him tell you about that now.
That was absolutely hilarious. Well, not at the time, but afterwards Nikki cried herself back to sleep after the squirrel attack. I still kind of cannot believe that a squirrel would take a bite into a chunk of flesh that is so large. I mean, what was it thinking? Biting into my little hairy calf. Anyway, it sure did wake me up. Happy to hear that James found you what seems to be the biggest monitor ever recorded in the history of Safari Live. We are breaking boundaries today, or at least he is. So that's wonderful. You don't often get to see their whole body. Often it's just their head poking out of a hole. Now, what I'm tempted to try and show you is a 360-degree view of the beautiful clouds that we have in the sky. And there's a little part of the road where I'm going to be able to do a full turn. So let's start now, Jean-Andre, and I'll start turning when possible. But so we're kind of looking to the north now, and I'm going to continue to now turn the vehicle to the south. Beautiful clouds. Oh, look at that. Now that's now getting more to the west. Now we're almost directly west into the sun, getting there. Beautiful, beautiful clouds in the sky this afternoon. So that's my comeback to James's monitor lizard. This is quite cool. There is a scorpion that's been doing some housekeeping here, and just going to jump out quickly to show you guys what's going on. So here you can see a coin slot like hole, horizontal, not vertical. And that makes sense, as the scorpions have got very horizontal bodies. You can see over here there's very kind of soft soil that's been ruffled up. This has been excavated from outside of the burrow And along with it, there's a whole bunch of millipede exoskeleton rings. And this is one of the favorite foods of scorpions. These would all have been connected together when the millipede was still alive. The millipede could have been as long as this little branch that I'm on, so maybe this is just the remains of one millipede that the scorpion's been feeding on. Hard to say though, because they do vary in size from about an inch to about 4, 5, sometimes 6 inches in length, the big millipedes. So, happy to know that there's a scorpion living down in this hole, and there are scorpions all over this ecosystem, some that live on the ground, some that live in trees. And interestingly, they are seldom seen, so people don't really pay too much heed to them, but they are here in very, very large numbers, doing their bit keeping the insect numbers in check. And I guess that's one thing that's so easy as us as humans to do. It's so easy to overlook things that you do not see, but that's not to say that they are not there. Maybe after dark what I'll do is I'll use my UV torch or black light to shine on... Oh, well, James has now found the rock monitor's cousin. Can you believe it? Off you go.
He's coming into frame.
How cool is this, everyone? There is a very large water monitor. You can see a much more pointed nose, and obviously just next to the water here at Arathusa Dam. And he is chilled as Larry, walking across the road and enjoying the sun. This is so cool. I've never seen two in the same day before. This one was also spotted by David. Isn't that amazing? Well done, David. Good job. I just want to make sure if his diet is any different from that of his close relative, and I think it is. I think you'll find that he eats a lot more aquatic stuff. Yes, he does. Crabs, frogs, etc. And there he goes. Very, very cool indeed. That is the water monitor and the rock monitor in one afternoon. That's very cool. Now, Rusty Pipe, Rusty Pipe, you're on YouTube and you want to know if there are any venomous lizards here. Rusty Pipe, there are no venomous lizards. There are, I mean, I think if a rock monitor bit you, you could get an infection probably from the bacteria in his mouth, given what they do eat. But nothing like, for example, that Komodo dragon of Southeast Asia, which will bite you, and if you don't get medical help, the bacteria and nastiness that they have in their saliva will eventually kill you. There is a hippo in here, believe it or not. And actually, Dave, there's a water monitor, if you can believe it, swimming behind the hippo. You see it there? It's stopped. It may actually be a terrapin. I think it is a terrapin. Oh, and there's also, Dave, there's a black crake. You see this little black bird? Yeah. You've got him there. That's a black crake, everyone. For those of you who are keeping lists, I think you'll find that that's a bird that you haven't got on your list. Many of you will not have that bird, a black crake. I will find you a picture thereof. That's very cool indeed. It's all happening here at Arathusa Dam. Crake search. And there he is, yeah, definitely a black crake. Very obviously so. There he is. Now I'll show you a couple more pictures. And that's him right there. In glorious technicolor, yellow beak, red legs, black body, red eye. Very nice, black crake. And then, just let me look there. Dave, there is a water monitor. You know whether you see the stick there, right?
Yes.
Got the stick. If you come back from the stick, it looks like a little bit of mud in the middle of the hyacinth. You see that right hand? That's it. Zoom in there. Down a bit. Down a bit. That's in there, right in the middle of the shot. That is a water monitor. Lying in the water hyacinth. Very cool. Today is Water Monitor Day. So Jen, on Twitter, you say you're loving these water monitor sightings or lizard sightings. I am too. Beautiful. And then there's another little bird. If you just go up from there, Dave, you'll see him. And there he is. Can you see him? Go right a bit. He's in there somewhere. He's a little three-banded plover. There he is. Three-banded plover. Quite common, but also a nice one for the list. For those of you who are new to keeping a list, I think those who've been keeping a list for a while will have the three-banded plover. But new, he might be too many of you. Black crake, please let us know if the black crake is a new one for your lists. It would be great. And then head across to Scott for another grey bird.
Well, this go-away bird is showing us, or at least was showing us, just how hot it is when the sun bursts through that thin layer of wispy clouds we showed you earlier. It was panting heavily there, just like a dog. And now it's calling. Quack! Hence the name, the grey go-away bird. Oh, there's another one here panting in this tree. Let's see if we can't get this. This one's trying to seek refuge in some shade, which it's doing quite well. Look at how quickly its throat is pulsing. High repetition panting. They really are cool birds, the go-away birds. And I think after this brief but quite steamy sighting, why don't you go and cool off with the terrapins and the monitor lizards back at Arathusa Waterhole.
In there, up a bit, up. Now, there was another monitor, there's a terrapin, and there's also, in that pool, exactly where Dave's got his camera, there is a very large catfish. In fact, that shiny bit on the bottom end of your screen there is the back of a very large catfish. There, it's moving. That is a massive catfish. It's probably about 3 or 4 feet across. Huge fish. I initially thought it was a snake swimming around, but it isn't. It's all happening over here. And then we did also spot a monitor swimming around. But I think we've lost him, have we, Dave? I can't see him. Dave, the monitor. There's another back of a catfish you can see there. And there was a monitor swimming around there. And I wonder if they aren't all swimming around at the moment because there's so many more insects as a result of that rain. They would have landed in the water in an attempt to drink, or I don't know, probably just last night got exhausted and landed in the water. And that would have brought out the monitors and in turn brought out the frogs, and that would have in turn brought out the catfish and the lizards. Okay, I think we'll probably press on from here now. I did see some tracks of a very large male leopard, but they look to be from last night. So we'll carry on. There, of course, is a hippo, very shaded nicely, of course, in the hyacinth, but going to struggle now because he looks like he's in water there. He's actually largely in mud. Brilliant. On we go. So I hope a couple of new birds for those of you keeping lists. What we'll do now is we'll head sort of slowly down to the south of Arathusa, then across past the airstrip and back towards Djuma. I do want to go and see the hyena den. I think one of us will go and see the hyena den sometime during the afternoon, just to see if that female who was attacked by those wild dogs is getting on okay. I'll be interested to know. Somebody said he thought that that perhaps that hyena wasn't part of the clan, and that's why the rest of the hyenas didn't come and help her. I don't want to throw that out completely. I don't think it's true, but I'll be very interested to see when we get to the den if she is convalescing over there. But I'm only going to go there once it starts to cool down a bit. And Tig, I think it was, that was asking if we were going to go to the den. Yes, we are definitely. One of us will go at some stage. Oh, Ted, not Tig, Ted. Thank you, Louise. Sorry about that. Not much of a flush of green here, I must say. Now, the rain has been extremely localized over the course of the summer, with the little bit of rain that we've had. And so this area obviously didn't get as much as we got at Djuma, even though we're not much more than, I'd say, only about 4 kilometers, or 3 kilometers even, as the crow flies from where we live at Djuma. Absolutely no rain here, hey? Look at this. It's completely kind of grey. That is fascinating. Okay, let's head across to Scott. He's at a water hole. I think there are 2 watering damsels there, but we'll get an update from him.
Very good. I hope you enjoyed your dip in the waterhole with the terrapins and the catfish and the monitor lizards. Interesting stuff. Now, we've just headed past Gallagher Waterhole, small little pond in front of the One Djuma camp. There was nothing to see there. And we are now going to continue up onto our northern boundary called the Buffalo's Hook Cut Line. And check that carefully. I'm hoping that the wild dogs are going to start to think about getting up and moving. Who knows, maybe they already have. But what we're going to require is that they head south over our boundary into Djuma, so that we can have some fun playing with them this afternoon.
Hey, I want to go to a visual day. Can I join? Yeah, Andrew, just come slowly. The northern pond is here. Okay, you want me to wait or?
Well done to Deborah and Tom, who enjoyed racking up 2 new birds for their, whip it around there, Jean-Andre, to their bird list. Oh, maybe another one. Let me just swivel the vehicle, Jean-Andre. Sorry, I've left you with a terrible angle now. Oh, and I can't get the car in gear. Okay, oh no, it's gone. It was a black-crowned chagra. It's a bird we so often hear, but so seldom see, and it was just perched out in the open there. We'll get it. We'll get that one. But I'm happy that you guys got your extra birds with that grey-headed kingfisher earlier, even though it was a juvenile. It does count. And as we head east along Buffalo's Hook Cut Line in the search of the wild dogs, if we don't have any luck with them, we have got a plan B, which will be to try and find the black-crowned night herons, which is a bird that I've never seen at Djuma in all my time here. But for now, we've got a comical little character sitting in the tree. Don't go anywhere. There you go.
Area down here, so I check the site there by
Oh, this to me looks like a youngster that would have been born this year. It doesn't have the pink coloration around the eye and the throat, which would be indicative of an adult, and it's also got a very small beak, so a young little hornbill. Very good. Oh, has Johnny just got another one there? No. Good. Oh, they're moving about here. You see, there's the pink around the neck and the eye that I was talking about, indicating an adult bird. That looks like an adult female to me, possibly not very big, but this could be a whole happy family jumping around here, youngsters and adults. There they go, probably feeding on nothing, having a dust bath. Come on, carry on. That's one of my favorite things to watch, is birds rolling themselves around in the dust, ruffling their feathers. It's an interesting cleaning technique, this, because who would think that rubbing yourself in dirt is going to help keep you clean, but it actually does. It helps them to get a little bit of grip and traction as they comb through their feathers with their beak, and that way the dust or fine bits of sand almost help remove little parasites that may be hiding in and amongst the feathers. And looks like, according to Louise, that he's wearing a ponytail. And I agree, it's more of a ponytail than a mohawk, that little black strip that runs down the center over their head. I've never looked at it in that regard, so thank you, Lou, for opening my eyes up to these birds wearing ponytails. Now, one of you is suggesting that the bird that was seen at Pete's Pond that we're not sure of was a bee-eater. I'm not convinced, but possibly. Let me just chat with Craig quickly. Afternoon, Craig. No news, my side, yet, sadly.
Alright, sorry, thank you, Scotty. Sort of find out whereabouts located
I'm on Gallagher shortcuts heading. I'm going to check Buffelshoek cut line from here east to see if the pack haven't crossed south. Thereafter, I'm going to be hunting the black-crowned night herons that you saw dodging me this morning.
Alright, perfect. This morning before you guys...
Looks like Craig wants to have a long chat, so let's make the most of this. Sorry, I missed the end of that.
Before you close down, did you pick up any other tracks for the Nkuhumas?
Negative, Craig. The last tracks we had, or not we had, Taxon had, were going east away from the Gallagher waterhole. That's the last.
Thank you, sir.
Copy, no problem. So, now, speculations that the bird seen could be a little bee-eater. It's got no red on it, so green coloration, yes, but it's got a yellow throat. There's no red on it. The white-fronted bee-eater, maybe it was that one. Not too sure though. Like I said, I need to see a picture. Just a vague description like that can be useful, but it hasn't been in the case with me. So I'm gonna, like I said, I need to see a picture, and therefore we can start taking some calculated guesses as to what it is. Otherwise, we'll never get to the bottom of it, I guess. But bee-eaters weren't far off, but there's not a red and yellow around the neck or head in the bee-eaters that we get here. There might be a slightly different one that you get up there that fits that profile. Okay, well, James has just arrived at the Arathusa International Airstrip. Let's hope he's not booking a flight anyway, but why don't you go and see exactly what he's up to.
No.
Hello, everyone. Ow. I was rather hoping I might retrieve this red-billed buffalo weaver's nest. It has fallen out of that tree. But it's rather too full of thorns. I thought I might just be able to kind of pick it up and bring it across, but it's rather too full of thorns. They're not always made of thorns, they're often made of just sort of dry twigs. That one has obviously been, the material's been sourced from acacia trees around here. It's very spiky, and it must have fallen out of that tree there, I suspect, during the last storm that we had. Anyway, there's nothing in it at the moment, but it is quite interesting in that although it looks just like a pile of sticks, it's very cleverly interwoven, and within it there is a little grass section. So each pod in which the couples will live, it's like a sort of flat, if you like, a block of flats in which couples of birds live. Each little pod in which each couple lives is a sort of intricately woven bit of grass inside the protective thorn layer. It's really quite clever. I didn't realize that before. So many new things, David, every day. Replug myself in. We are now on the Arathusa International Airstrip, and we will be driving to the south of it and then back to Djuma. Michelle, in Michigan, you say that you're looking for the official name of the water monitor. Well, the official name, last I checked, was the water monitor. It might also be called a water legavan, but that would be a South African term which you won't find. I'll find you the Latin name now, and then you can look that up if you like. See, I'm multitasking, David. It's called a water monitor, Varanus niloticus. So Varanus, niloticus, Niloticus. I am reading and driving, such is my skill. Varanus niloticus. There you go, Michelle. Definitely called a water monitor out here. I'm not sure why you wouldn't find it. I don't know it by any other name, except other legavan, which is it's a South African term, an Afrikaans term, which I don't think you'll find in common usage. Right, we're now at the very southern end of the traverse, where we're allowed to go, and of course we have all trespassed by mistake every so often. I did follow a beautiful female leopard south of here one day. Didn't realize where I was until I popped out onto another road. Oh, here's some fellow doing a high-speed chase, probably to an exciting sighting. Off we go then. Hello, yes, hello, you're on TV, smile.
WildEarthTV.
Go ahead.
Where are you going?
I'm just heading off onto the Triple M break.
Copy, this is main, this is Arathusa private.
Ah, sorry about that, I must have missed the turn off. And
turn off is the next one left.
I am 20 meters beyond where I'm supposed to be. It was this road that I meant to take. Of all the times to make a mistake like that, I'm sure I've gone down that road before. That is deeply embarrassing. It's this road that we're supposed to take, not that one. You heard him say there, Wild Earth, come in. Go ahead. I thought he was going to tell me about an exciting sighting. Where are you going? To the Triple M break. You are in the wrong place, not on this property. Fair enough. Let me reverse. That's so embarrassing. I've done this 100 times along this road. Now, Gracie, you say you've heard Scott singing. Well, you've heard something that I never have, Gracie, and you say you'd like us to make a song together. Gracie, Look, I will suggest it to Scott, but the last time that we performed music together, he played the drums and I played the guitar, and he said to me in no uncertain terms that it would never ever happen again. So I'm not sure we'll be able to convince him, but we can try, certainly. I was hardly far off track. I'm sure that fellow was being a little bit ungracious to me. Anyway, so it goes. Right, Ashley, let me answer your question as I get over the embarrassment of that. You want to know about mimics, and are there any other animals that mimic things? Because lots of birds obviously mimic calls. Not as far as I know, you know, Ashley. I think it is only birds that do very clear mimics. Well, human beings are obviously very good mimics of other animals, well, some better than others. Brian, of course, is a brilliant mimic. David is mute, and so he's not a very good mimic. And that's a bit unkind. He's not totally mute. He does speak every so often. But in terms of mimicking sounds, I think the birds are by far the best at it. I suppose there might be... No, it's pretty much only the birds. And I mean, you get birds like those... what are they called? The South Asian species. Oh! Lyrebirds, thank you, Louise, lyrebirds, that will mimic exactly the shutter of a photo of a camera going ka-ching. They'll mimic a chainsaw cutting the forest, and there's this iconic shot of David Attenborough filming, or certainly narrating over a lyrebird that makes all the sounds of the forest, and then has started to make the sounds of the cutting of the chainsaw. And it's an amazing kind of profound moment where we realize that the lyrebird is actually singing of his own demise as we cut away the forests in which it lives. But lyrebirds, amazing birds at making different sounds. Okay, let's head across to Scott. I'm going to get off this long, straight, bumpy road. Hopefully see you on Djuma. I might see you at Nkoro. Could be.
We've just heard either a branch breaking or some kind of a loud snapping noise off to our right here. It's incredibly thick. Maybe it's the lions chewing on a buffalo, or maybe it's an elephant moving through this thick bush feeding as it goes, or maybe a buffalo, something big.